Welcome to RGES High School Grammar Lesson 14. I apologize that this is a little bit late. I would like you to have the grammar worksheet done by Thursday, but I will not post the Shakespeare notes until this week. So don't worry about having those listened to and notes taken on those until next week. Again, do not worry about, there will only be one tape for you to watch for this Thursday. All right, there's 4 main sentence types. Part of this is review: the simple, the compound, the complex, and the compound complex. The best way to define these would be to consider, to think in terms of main clauses or independent clauses and dependent clauses. Remember, both a main clause and a dependent clause have a subject and a verb, but in one it does not make complete sense by itself, and in the other one it does. In other words, an example of an independent clause would be something like Mrs. Kinzer is sitting in her lazy boy because she broke her foot, period. An example, so that would be an independent clause. It makes sense all by itself. An example of a dependent clause would be whenever the sun comes up in the morning and I stop. That would be a dependent clause, even though it has several words. It has a subject and a verb. Sun comes up. It still does not make complete sense by itself. It needs something more to make the sentence or the thought complete. So a simple sentence has one main clause. That's the main definition. A compound sentence has 2 main clauses, but no dependent clauses. Very critical. And then we'll define the other 2 on the next page. So to just say it has a subject and a verb is inadequate. So let's just throw out that idea. It does have a subject and a verb. An independent clause has a subject and a verb and makes complete sense. A dependent clause has both a subject and a verb but does not make complete sense. We contrast those 2 things with the idea of a phrase. A phrase does not have both a subject and a verb. That's why that subject and verb comes in. All clauses have a subject verb. Okay. But a phrase has a subject or a verb. An example of a phrase might be, in the midst of all this snowy weather. That would be a phrase. It has a subject, but not a verb. Okay, so that's why we're getting the subject-verb idea, but subject-verb by itself is not enough. So when you're defining a simple sentence, you want to think in terms of one main clause, and I will assume you can define what a clause is. I will ask you that as a separate thing, but for this definition of a simple sentence, then I will not ask for that. Just say it has only one main clause, only one. Okay, and no dependent clauses. An example, Petruchio strongly desired a rich wife. I'm trying to give you examples more like you would be writing. You don't write, the boy ran up the hill. But here you still have one subject, one verb, one main clause. It may be a compound subject or a compound verb, but only one main clause and no independent. What do I mean by compound subject? I could say Hortensio and Gremio desired the sweet Bianco. That would be a compound subject. 2 people, 1 verb. Or I could say 1 person, 2 verbs. That also qualifies for a simple sentence. Okay. Notice, no commas. No commas here, no commas here. We might have commas for other reasons, but no commas because of sentence structure. Okay, we'll talk about other things like lists or 2 adjectives and other reasons we might have a comma later, but no comma between the major parts of a sentence. In other words, between independent clauses or dependent clauses. Now, in the second example, here, the compound sentence has two main clauses and no dependent clauses. Here's an example. Lucentio pretended to be a tutor, but Hortensio acted the part. Oh, there we go. It has more to it. Lucentio pretended to be a tutor, but Hortensio acted the part of a musician. The first main clause is this. It's number 1. It has its subject, Lucentio. It has its verb, pretended, and it could stand alone as a sentence. Lucentio pretended to be a tutor. The second main clause is this. Hortensio acted the part of a musician. It has a subject, Hortensio. It has a verb, acted, and it could stand alone as a new sentence. Hortensio acted the part of a musician. So these are two independent clauses. They are joined together to make one sentence by a comma, notice in the red there, a comma and a coordinating conjunction, comma, but in this case. Okay. So we could have joined it by any other kind of coordinating conjunction after a comma, or we could have chosen a semicolon and not included the coordinating conjunction. So the rules for punctuating a compound sentence where you are joining two independent or main clauses is to either use a semicolon or a comma plus a coordinating conjunction. Do not use both. Let's go to the next page and more review here. The third kind of sentence is the complex sentence. It has one main clause. If it had two main clauses, it would not be complex. It has one main clause and one or more subordinate clauses. An example, although he came to study at the university, comma, Lucentio decided to woo Bianca instead. The main clause is Lucentio decided to woo Bianca instead. The subject is Lucentio. The verb is decided. It stands alone as a sentence. The other clause, so there's my one main clause. The other clause, although he came to study at the university, let me pause here.